Okay, cool. So let me get into. Some of you are getting some interviews already, which is really great. Um, so I wanted to get into like those kinds of initial questions that you oftentimes get. These can be like very important. Normally, when you go on these interviews, it's the first question. The first round is typically like an HR screen, right? And then if you pass the HR screen, it will go into like technical interview. That can last a couple rounds. The further that you get along, it goes back into more of like a cultural slash technical decision. And also, to be honest, like that last round, it's like cultural, it's technical, and then it's also probably like 50% random whether or not you'll ultimately get the job. As someone who's been in those decisions in like final round meetings, as like how they make their decision, like I said, it's like, well, you're going one way, we're going to hire this person, and then all of a sudden one out of the five people makes a different argument, and you decide not to, or vice versa, so like just know that like sometimes it really is, people, different companies, as rational as they may seem, have pretty wild like hiring processes, and pretty ad hoc ones. So just know that there's really nothing you can do, especially in that final round. You just try your best. You try to nail the technical, the cultural, and then a bit you just leave up to, fate. Um, all right. So let's say you get even like the initial round. I forget if I think we did cover this, but what I like to do, if you get that initial round, you need to do, like, don't just walk in to the interview and like without any prep and just be like, this is just going to be an HR screen. Like any interview I go on, I'm doing uh, initial work. It doesn't matter. Like I've gone on lots of interviews at this point. I'm always doing initial work to like think about, and kind of like what's in the back of my head is just, all right, what does this company actually do? Like, how am I going to be used? Meaning like, how is my skill set going to be used? What is my day to day going to look like? And then why do I want this position? And also like, why am I a good fit for this position? Okay, like those are the questions I'm typically trying to answer. And there's different ways that you can do this. I think I've gone through this, right? You can reread the job description. You can go on their website. Sometimes it's still, even with their website, like hard to figure out what the company actually does. Um, and then I'll go on their LinkedIn, like look for current workers, try to see their past story. So sometimes you can get some ideas to what they do. And then, like I said, I'll go on like blogs and GitHubs. This is really great. Like, just Google like, the name of the company, technical blog, or look to see on their website if they have a blog. That's really great because if you can bring this up in any round of the interview, it shows that you're invested. And almost no candidates will do this, right? So it's like really good. Um, Other things that I'll do if I'm interviewing with someone who is like say that initial round, depending on the size of the company, can be either like the engineering manager or even the co-founder. I'll look up like their personal LinkedIn and kind of have that story there. I'll look to see if they've given any talks, on YouTube. I'll look at their GitHub. So you can also like just prep for the individual person that you'll be meeting with, and that's something I will do, especially when I'm like, when I was like trying to break into a new field, because then you can ask them questions about like their journey if it's kind of appropriate, or just like bring up the fact that you heard about their vision for the company, right? If they're an engineering manager or a CEO, right? Like, and those are things that I will bring up. You do want to be sensitive about like kind of like not, you kind of are giving them like softball questions because you don't want to rub them the wrong way, but still like just having done that level of research shows that they're very passionate, that you're passionate about the job. And I'll just say like the way the companies that really appreciate this are smaller, 50 100 person or fewer companies. um, but honestly anyone, because if you've ever hired somebody, you just know how much like if any of you have ever hired someone, uh, you kind of you know yourself that passion for a position and investment and buy-in just matter an enormous amount. So you showing that early on really helps. That's basically like every time I got a job in a different field was basically just by showing that. And doing the research is a good way to do that. You don't have it's not anything you have to be acting or anything or be super expressive. Just that level of work shows that you're invested. All right, so I really recommend doing it. It doesn't take that long. And if this is what you're going to be, how you're going to be spending your day, it's worth doing it just for your own sake, right? To really get a sense of the company. But just know, like, while you're doing it, I'm always looking for, like, how am I a good fit? Why do I want this job? Things like that. All right. And that way, like, when you walk into the interview, you should basically be, like, convinced that, like, this is a great next step for you. Like, this is a company that you want to work in, even if that's not explicit in like what in your interview, it comes across implicitly. If you kind of walk in with that framework. So you can see like this is kind of the next set. It's just like they'll typically like I've been asked this question like many times, like why should we hire you? Like just point blank, and it could be or like why do you want to be? I've as you know like I've kind of had this different these different types of career positions. So people have asked me like, why do you want to be a lawyer? Why do you want to be a consultant? Why do you want to be, whatever? And when you get that question in an interview, it can like throw you off guard a little bit because it can take a minute to think. So you should obviously think of that and like have written that out before you sit down in the interview. All right. Like, because you want to come across as somebody who has reflected on this beforehand. So we will actually ask you to write this out in this class, but you should, have this out in an outline and be something that you really reflect on. So it's like, why do you think you'll be a good match for this company? Why do you want to be like this? You have to be able to answer. Like, why do you want to be a data engineer, analytics engineer, software engineer? This is also very similar to the like, tell me about yourself question, which I've also gotten on interviews. And when I got it at first, I had no idea how to answer it. We'll go through that as well today. But yeah, if you get this question, it's kind of like it's almost like the tell me about yourself question, right? It's pretty broad, open-ended. Things just do not say, don't cross off your previous positions. Don't even say that you got laid off from a previous position or like, like if it comes up, like you can answer it bluntly if they ask you. But otherwise, basically you don't want to give the impression that like, oh, this is a fallback or like this is like process of elimination, right? And so you kind of wound up here. It's the story that you're trying to tell is like, this is where your passion led you, So that, don't say I didn't like this other position. Don't say I really want to be like a data scientist or an AI engineer, and so this is like my second choice. Or you don't want to say that either. Don't mention the lifestyle, like I really wanted a remote position. That's not why they're going to hire you, right? Instead, you want to convey obviously like your love of data engineering. Like this is the place for you. Okay, like that's really what you're trying to convey. So I gave, like a sample of this, and basically you can see that it's not these like in all these responses as well. It's not like I'm really good at this. It's that I really want to do this. Like this is where my passion lies. So you're not trying to say like I'm just super. I'm really good at math or things like that. It could be like I really love math. And I saw that from math that I really like the logical problem solving, and I see that same kind of thing in engineering. Right? And then not only that, but with data engineering, I get to work with data, and I know that that's what drives decisions. So I like, having that window into data, how messy it can be, and then also, how impactful it can be. Like that's, to me, like that's a good answer because it's all about like your passion. So I give this sample answer here. So the point is, even if you come from something that's not tech oriented at all, right? You can still kind of show like your origin story, essentially. So when working in retail, I realized how vital data was towards understanding our business. You could say like I started to do analysis with the data, but I saw that with coding and engineering, right, we can set up these like automated processes and get the right data to the right people. Once I started coding, I found that I just really love that problem aspect. It was really cool learning about these different technologies, blah, blah. Okay, so, it shows like you were kind of working in this job thinking that this is good, but like could be even better, and like pursued it. So that's kind of what you're trying to convey with those initial questions. Oftentimes what would throw me off as well is when people are like, "Do you have any questions for me?" And I sometimes like literally, especially right out of college, just like blew interviews with this last question. So here's some questions that you can ask, right? One is like, are there any traits that tend to make new hires, successful in this role, right? So this is good because oftentimes it will take reflection from them, and it shows that you are really thinking about that. How does this role contribute to larger company goals, right? Like, especially if you've done some research on the company, you can say like, oh, I saw that the company, is looking to expand here, right? Or is developing these products. Is that something that like the data engineering team has a window into, or is that something that you saw affect your team, right? Like in terms of the work that you guys are getting. Which types with data engineering can be like, what kinds of stakeholders are you typically working with? Who are you trying to serve? So you're just trying to get a sense of like day to day. How have the tasks of the data engineering team changed as the company evolved, right? So you can see this is kind of similar to that. What are some challenges in working with the data? I think this is a really good question. This is really like their day to day, and it shows that it's even better if you start to kind of like anticipate what those challenges might be in their domain, right? If it's like healthcare data, or maybe it's like unstructured data, things like that. Maybe it's data that you really need to do a lot of cleaning with, things like that. And then here, I also have this too. Like, I was looking at your LinkedIn, your career transition looks interesting. Tell me more about how you went from X to Y. Like, be careful about this, I would say. Like, I think this is a good question depending on the nature of the interview, but you don't want to act too much like you're just kind of like, like it's a little bit almost like you don't want to act like you're just like wasting time, right? Like, or just trying to fill space. But if it is especially relevant to their role, like how do you use these skills? I thought this is kind of cool, interesting. And if it gives light on like the current position, this can be a good question. It's also, as I said, like very, very good in more like informational interviews. So yeah, I mean, like these are definitely look at this. As I said, like you need to have an answer for this stuff when you walk into an interview, and you don't have to. You don't memorize any of this. Just if you review it, if you kind of like have written out an outline, and it's a genuine answer, like that's more what you're trying to convey, right? So we'll go through. That's kind of like the next thing. It's just an elevator pitch, right? And that's the same type of thing. One thing I should just say is every time that I go into an interview, I'm always like thinking about my past experiences, my the current role that I'm interviewing for, and kind of like also like what I want to do in the future. So basically, like the message I'm trying to convey in the interview is like, this is the perfect next step for me. All right. And just to give you like, I don't know, not to like oversell this, but the way that I like stumbled upon this, like this guy, also kind of recommends this Steve Dalton, who's really good. But the way for me that I really like started to believe in this, when I graduated from law school, actually it was my second year, they have you interview, it's like speed dating. They have you interview in one day with like 20 different companies. It's actually over 2 days. And at the end of the first day, you then hear back from all the different companies that, you're moving into the second round in. Except if you're me, because I didn't hear back from a single company, which is exceptionally, if you think about law school or like going to like a law school like Columbia or whatever, it's very scary because you're hundreds of thousands of dollars in the hundreds of thousands of dollars in the pocket, and your only saving grace is getting one of those interviews, you are done. I'm going to be a farmer trying to pay off debts. All right, so I literally did, I'm not lying, I got 0 callbacks, and I was terrified because I was doing the math, which wasn't hard. And so then I was like, all right, I better convince people that I want to be a lawyer no matter what. So I literally, for every job, I held up my resume, I held up the job description and the company, and I just drew a line. I literally put these things together, one by one next to the other, and just told the story as to why this was the perfect step for me. And I swear to God that worked. I interviewed for 10 companies the next day. I did get something like 9 callback interviews, which I would if you can imagine, that was a huge relief for me. So this really, really is effective. Even if you do not care about the profession, you are sick of data engineering, you are still aiming for a job, just do this, right? You have to walk in there believing. That was my thing. I did not want to be a lawyer, but I had to walk in there believing that I wanted to be a lawyer and this was the job for me. All right? So if you just kind of walk in and convince yourself for those 30 minutes, that was at least very effective for me. So this video, I really like this guy. He actually wrote a really popular book called The 2-Hour Job Search. And yeah, I'll just put this on now. It's the same kind of idea. This is a thing about answer the tell me about yourself question. And it's the same, where it's really hitting on the same theme, that what you're trying to do is convey your passion for the position. All right. And what he says, in this tell me about yourself interview, it's not about selling and this is something that I've had to coach a lot of people on. It's not about selling your accomplishments, all right? The whole rest of the interview, you can sell your accomplishment, all right? There's opportunities for that as you go through step by step. This is more about building a connection and conveying your passion, all right? And like I said, when you're moving into a new position, that's just as important as anything else, right? Because it just dictates so much of performance is how much you care. All right. So we've had really accomplished, really accomplished students, including you guys. And so with them, they have a lot of accomplishments to kind of sell, but really it's not about that. It's really just in this question, just about why do you want to do this thing? Why have you worked so hard for it? Right. And for a lot of people, just before I show this, for a lot of people, it can be your origin story. If you think about like I put in the reading, a superhero origin story, right? Is all right, they saw some sort of crime and then they went into crime fighting, right? For me in education, my origin story is I went to I was passionate about international development. I went abroad. I saw people had various health issues, and we were trying to help give them clean water and things like that. And we learned that as much as clean water, yeah, you can bring them running pipes, or you can also show them about boiling water, right? And then when I was working with them, they would always ask for English speaking skills so that they can get jobs. So I just saw that there was this. You can do all this work, but really so much of the low-hanging fruit was in education, right? And, as I moved into education, I just love how much it combines various skills, from storytelling to the content itself to, building a community. And that's why I really love doing it. So it's I was asked that question, right? Why do I want to be a teacher when I interviewed at Flatiron School? And that's, in this without having any teaching experience, and they're hiring one instructor, right? That's kind of the type of answer you need to give to convince people you're going to do the work. Okay, so let's watch this.
Hi, I'm Steve Dalton, Program Director of Daytime Career Services with the Career Management Center, and today's topic is the long 2-minute pitch. We're going to cover 3 main questions in today's session. First, what is a long pitch and when do you use it? Second, what is the purpose of the long pitch? And third, how do you create a long pitch? First, what is a long pitch and when do you use it? A long pitch is something that you use only in interviews, either job interviews or informational meetings. It is 2 minutes in duration, and it covers the whys rather than the whats of your story. The whys are what's really interesting about you. What makes you tick? Why did you make the decisions you made? The whats are already in your resume, and you'll have ample time later in the interview to discuss those. A common mistake people make with their long pitch is they sell themselves. You have an entire rest of your interview to sell yourself. This is the one question where you have a chance to establish rapport and likability with your interviewer. This is your one chance to talk about why you are the person you are. To help you deliver an effective long pitch, I've developed the FIT model. This will help you convey the right information efficiently in your interviews. FIT stands for favorite part, improvement desired, and transition made. You'll want to present FIT for each stage of your career leading up to now. So for me, as a former chemical engineer in college, I might say this. My favorite part of being a chemical engineer was learning how to break down big problems into smaller pieces. But the improvement I desired was applying that rigorous logic to a wider variety of challenges. So the transition I made upon graduation was entering the strategy consulting industry with A.T. Kearney. You would repeat this FIT model for each stage of your career. It's an easy way for you to highlight your favorite parts, your passions in your previous work. It's also a very elegant way for you to highlight promotions that you received and explain any job changes that you may have made. If you've had many roles in your past, it's okay to group similar roles together. Similarly, feel free to omit certain parts of your career path that are not germane to the discussion about your current job search. In summary, the key to success for a good long pitch is to cover the whys of your career and not the whats. You'll have plenty of time to discuss the whats of your career later in the interview, but this is your one chance to form rapport with your interviewer, and likability largely determines your success in getting an invitation to the next round.
Cool. So like, you can see it's, he does like this like FIT model thing. Favorite part, improvement, transition. It's basically like the same thing that I'm talking about. It's like your origin story, right? Like this is where I started, right? You're not being negative, so that's why like the favorite part helps. How you want to even go even further, or like what that led you to, and then like you moving forward, right? So the other thing is like it shows like you're in control of your career, and like you're the one in the driver's seat. So yeah, I actually wrote out like some sample ones from previous students that we heard, but like this is something we'll have you kind of practice. Then the other thing, and this is also good, is like a short elevator pitch. So say you're at like you just meet someone randomly, or you're at like an in-person networking event, or even like on Slack, right? If you do like an intro, it's like your professional background / what you are doing now. For so many of you, this can either be like, if someone asked me this, I would, and I'm trying to move into say a more technical role, I actually wouldn't bring up so much like the boot camp. If I'm trying to move into a more technical role, like I would actually bring up more like the open source work that I'm doing. All right, so for a lot of you, either it can be the internship work that you're doing, or like open source work, right? Which is why it's pretty, it's important to do that kind of stuff. So it's the same thing. It'll be like, okay, so currently I'm serving as a consultant for this company, right? And we're working on, developing data pipelines for this healthcare organization. It's really interesting because blah, blah, and that's one reason why I want to show up here, is because, here I can really see how they are doing blah, this type of thing, right? So same thing, like you're just conveying enthusiasm. You're not like I've been at networking events where like, yeah, I'm looking for a job like everyone else. Like that's not helpful, and don't, you don't want to act down about anything. Like people will sympathize with you, they'll feel bad for you, but they won't oftentimes give you a job that way, or like give, really lead you to opportunities. You just unfortunately, you kind of have to, well, not unfortunately, it's a good thing for you too. You have to look at the positive side of stuff. All right. So, yeah. So then here's another video. I'll let you guys watch this. But it's the same thing, right? Is you just indicate like, what are you working on now? Why you're passionate about it, right? Or like how it fits into your passions, and then what you're there to learn more about. Okay. And remember, you can see I'm always just saying this. Just like never like convey negativity. Don't hint at it. Like same idea as like I had to walk in telling myself I wanted to be a lawyer. Like you have to walk in and think like, all right, things are going, things are great, like things are going well, or at least, like you can't be down about stuff. Um, and that's just important because I know this is a tough process. It's fine if you're down about it with me a little bit, but like in when you're networking, don't do that, right? Do that with your friends, etc. Um, okay, so that's the company-based questions, and then crafting an elevator pitch, and then we'll have you actually write out your elevator pitch. Okay, so we'll give you some time. Feel free to read back through this stuff. Uh, but basically, what you want to do is write out like your long pitch, and remember, I have some examples in the crafting your elevator pitch of some good ones. Like, how did you transition through your career, and like how did you kind of follow your passions in doing so? And then your short pitch, right? Like, what are you doing now? What are you passionate about? Like, what are you looking to learn more about? Right? And this is the kind of thing again that you would say in more of like a networking thing. This is more of what you would say in like the why do you want to be a data engineer? Why do you want to be a data scientist? Tell me about yourself type question. And again, like these, you want to be like, one thing you could do is you can literally just say, if you're not like, to sound genuine and to be genuine, I have obviously been reflecting on that a lot, and I think it comes down to like a couple things, right? I was thinking about like how I would answer that question, because if I went into just like 3 bullet points, like the reason why I want to be an engineer is because of A, B, and C, like then it might feel a little canned. But if you say something like, I was reflecting on that, and I think it came down to like two main reasons, right? First, I thought that I really like data engineering because I really like working with data. For me, it's a way of like getting at the truth, or at least close to the truth of what drives the problem and potential solutions. And honestly, like the engineering part, the more that I work with data, the more that I saw that if I can automate these solutions and send data to both like the right systems and the right individuals, that can set up a company for like really long-term impact, right? Not just be something that I do once, but also something that can really make an impact. Even if I potentially left the company, it can continue to make an impact. And with AI, this is only becoming even more important, right? Getting the right data, cleaning it, sending it to the right systems, right? In my view, like this is really a place that you can really drive a business forward and help it go to the next level, or help individuals make the right decision. Like something like that is fine, right? Like that's pretty good. I wrote something like that out, so if you guys are like want to steal it, fine, but don't steal it first. First, actually try to think about why you want to do this thing. All right, like your own answer, and then we can always update it. I can read through it, I will, and then we can update it from there. Questions about this? Yeah, don't go to law school. I always tell people that. So, okay, so here's these components. I do want to give you all time to read through this, write out an elevator pitch. From there, the next thing that we can go through is I wanted to review like the buying and selling a stock, and then we can go through. I guess this one is quite good too. The largest sum in a subarray. So we basically just want to finish out these, but I'll give you guys about like mainly time, like half an hour, to work on crafting your elevator pitch, writing it out, and then if you finished, then you can finish move through these lessons. This is really extra right now, the dynamic programming solution, so you can do that last. All right, and then what we'll move into, the next big topic is actually getting into these data structures. So you can see we have like Big O, brute force, lists, dictionaries, linked lists, recursion, all that stuff. All right. Binary search tree, I do think like this stuff will be, not only is this stuff always been important, but like things like trees, I think are going to become more important because AI deals, like agents and workflows deal with a lot of trees. So my sense is these will come up more. So I'm going to add a few more lessons into this. Cool. Let me split you all up. So just work on the elevator pitch stuff for now. That's the main focus.
Hey, Jeff.
Hey Wayne, how you doing?
Doing all right, doing all right. Yeah.
Pretty good. Um, yeah, I'll follow up with Max in a week or so. I've been working on the open dev and open source. That's actually been kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like finally got like a commit in there. It's like it is challenging though, without a
It's
doubt.
hard. It's hard. Yeah. I so much for the tuber project.